A mother and her 3 children were trapped in a car during the worst blizzard in 50 years. The temperature was dropping to minus 20 degrees. The snow was so thick they couldn't see anything outside. Then a stranger knocked on their window and said 4 simple words, "Come with me." Sarah Miller had to make an impossible choice. Trust a complete stranger in the middle of a deadly storm, or stay in the car and risk freezing to death with her children. She had 30 seconds to decide. What happened next became a story that would restore faith in humanity. This is a true story about a stranger who risked everything to save a family he'd never met, and about a mother who had to trust when every instinct told her to be afraid. Before we dive into this incredible rescue story, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss more true stories about heroes, hope, and humanity. Now let's see what happened on that terrifying night. Sarah Miller was 34 years old, a single mother raising 3 kids alone. Her husband had died in a car accident 2 years earlier, leaving her to support the family by herself. She worked as a nurse at County Hospital, often taking double shifts to pay the bills. Her children were Emma, age 10, Jacob, age 7, and little Lily, who was just 4 years old. Sarah's whole world revolved around those 3 kids. Every decision she made, every sacrifice was for them. Money was always tight. Sarah drove a 15-year-old Honda that had seen better days. The heat barely worked, and she knew she needed new tires, but she couldn't afford them yet. She kept telling herself, just a few more weeks and I'll have enough saved. It was February 14th, Valentine's Day. Sarah had promised to take the kids to visit her mother in the next town over. Grandma lived 40 miles away on Route 9, a country road that cut through farmland and woods. The weather forecast that morning said light snow in the afternoon, nothing to worry about. Sarah bundled up the kids, packed some snacks, and they hit the road at 3 p.m. But weather forecasts can be wrong, very wrong. By 4:30 p.m., the light snow had turned into a full-blown blizzard. The National Weather Service issued an emergency warning. Stay off the roads. This is a life-threatening situation. But by then, Sarah was already 25 miles from home, halfway to her mother's house. The snow came down so fast and thick that Sarah could barely see the road. The wind howled, shaking the car. The temperature was dropping fast. Sarah's old Honda struggled through the deepening snow. At 5:15 p.m., Sarah felt the car slide. She pumped the brakes, trying to maintain control, but the tires had no grip. The Honda slid off the road and into a ditch. The car tilted at an angle, stuck in 3 feet of snow. Sarah tried to reverse, but the wheels just spun uselessly. They were trapped. She pulled out her cell phone. No signal. The rural area had spotty coverage even on good days. In a blizzard, there was nothing. "Mom, are we stuck?" Emma asked, her voice small and scared. "It's okay, honey," Sarah lied, trying to keep her voice calm. "We'll figure this out." But Sarah knew the truth. They were in serious danger. The temperature outside was minus 15 and dropping. The car's heater was weak even when the engine was running strong. Now, stuck in a ditch with snow piling up around them, they wouldn't last long. She had maybe an hour before the cold became deadly, maybe less. Sarah kept the engine running to maintain heat, but she knew she couldn't do that forever. The gas tank was already at a quarter full. If they ran out of gas, they'd lose heat completely. The windows began to fog up from their breath. Sarah wiped them clear, but within seconds they fogged up again. Outside, the snow was already covering half the car. The wind screamed so loud it sounded like a freight train. Jacob started crying. "Mom, I'm cold." Sarah pulled all 3 kids close, wrapping them in her coat. "It's okay, baby. We'll be okay." But Lily, the youngest, was shivering badly. Her lips were starting to turn blue. Sarah rubbed her hands and feet, trying to keep the blood flowing. Emma, the oldest, looked at her mother with knowing eyes. At 10 years old, she was smart enough to understand they were in real trouble. "Mom, what are we going to do?" "I don't know yet, honey," Sarah admitted, "but we'll think of something." 20 minutes passed, then 30. No cars drove by. Route 9 was deserted. Everyone else had heeded the warning and stayed home. Only Sarah and her children were out here, alone in the deadly cold. Sarah made a decision. She would walk to find help. There had been a farmhouse a mile or so back. If she could reach it, she could call for help. But that meant leaving the kids alone in the car. The thought terrified her. What if something happened while she was gone? What if the car filled with snow and they couldn't get out? And what if she didn't make it? What if she got lost in the blizzard or collapsed from the cold? Then all 4 of them would die. Her children would be orphaned, dying alone in a freezing car. Sarah started to cry. Not loud crying, she couldn't let the kids see her lose control. Just silent tears running down her cheeks as she held her shivering children. "Dear God," she whispered, "please help us, please send someone. Anyone, I can't lose them, please." The gas gauge was getting lower. Sarah knew she'd have to turn off the engine soon to conserve fuel. When that happened, the cold would come fast. "Mom, look!" Emma suddenly pointed out the window. Through the snow, barely visible, were two faint lights, headlights. A vehicle was approaching slowly down Route 9. Sarah honked the horn frantically. She flashed her headlights. Please see us," she prayed. The vehicle, a large pickup truck, slowed down. It stopped about 20 feet from Sarah's car. A figure emerged from the truck, a man in a heavy winter coat, moving slowly through the deep snow toward them. Sarah's heart pounded. Every news story she'd ever heard about women and children in danger flashed through her mind. Stranger danger, kidnappings, murders, but they were freezing to death. What choice did she have? The man reached the driver's side window and knocked. Sarah rolled it down a crack. "You folks okay?" he shouted over the wind. He was older, maybe 60, with a gray beard and kind eyes, but Sarah had heard that evil can have kind eyes too. "We're stuck," Sarah shouted back. "Can you call for help?" The man shook his head. "No cell service out here, and it's getting worse. This storm is turning into a whiteout. Road crews won't be out until morning at the earliest." He looked at the children, saw their blue lips and shivering bodies. His face grew serious. "Ma'am, that car isn't going to keep you warm much longer. You need to come with me. I live just up the road, got a fireplace, hot food, and a working phone line." This was the moment, the impossible choice. Every motherly instinct screamed at Sarah to protect her children from strangers. But the cold was the real danger now. She could see Lily's eyes starting to glaze over. Hypothermia was setting in. "How far is your house?" Sarah asked. "Less than a mile, 5 minutes in my truck. But we need to go now. This storm is getting worse." Sarah looked at her children. She looked at the gas gauge nearly on empty. She looked at the snow that was now covering the windows. "Come with me," the man said again, more urgently. "Please, let me help you." Sarah made her decision. "Okay, kids, grab your coats, we're going." The man, he said his name was Tom, helped Sarah carry little Lily through the deep snow to his truck. Emma and Jacob followed, holding onto their mother's coat. Tom's truck was warm, blessedly warm. He had the heat on full blast. As soon as the children were inside, Sarah could see color starting to return to their faces. "There's blankets in the back seat," Tom said, starting to drive carefully down the snow-covered road. "Get those kids wrapped up." Sarah bundled all 3 children in thick wool blankets. They were still shivering, but the worst of the danger was passing. "Thank you," Sarah said, her voice breaking. "Thank you so much." "Don't thank me yet," Tom replied, focused on navigating the treacherous road. "Let's get you folks somewhere safe first." The short drive felt like an eternity. The blizzard was so intense that even Tom's big truck struggled. But he drove with the careful confidence of someone who'd lived through many winters. 5 minutes later, they pulled up to a small farmhouse. Warm yellow light glowed from the windows. It was the most beautiful sight Sarah had ever seen. Tom's wife, Margaret, met them at the door. She was a short woman in her late 50s with silver hair and a warm smile that immediately put Sarah at ease. "Oh my goodness, look at these poor frozen babies," Margaret exclaimed. "Tom, get that fire going bigger. I'll make hot chocolate." Within minutes, the children were sitting by a roaring fireplace, wrapped in more blankets, sipping hot chocolate with marshmallows. Their shivering had stopped. Lily was even starting to smile. Margaret brought out bowls of hot soup. "Made it this morning," she said. "Chicken noodle, best thing for cold bodies." Sarah watched her children eat ravenously. They were safe. They were warm. They were going to be okay. She started to cry again, but this time from relief. Margaret sat beside her and took her hand. "It's okay, honey. You're safe now. Your babies are safe." "I didn't know what to do," Sarah sobbed. "I thought we were going to die out there, and then your husband appeared like an angel." Tom, sitting in his armchair nearby, chuckled. "I'm no angel, ma'am, just a farmer who happened to be checking on my cattle when I saw your car. Couldn't leave you folks out there." As the children fell asleep by the fireplace, warm and full, Tom told Sarah their story. "Margaret and I lost our daughter 15 years ago," he said quietly. "Car accident in a snowstorm not far from here. She was about your age, had 2 little ones of her own." Margaret's eyes filled with tears. "We didn't find them in time. By the time the rescue crews located the car, it was too late." Sarah's heart broke for them. "I'm so sorry." "That's why Tom drives Route 9 every time there's a bad storm," Margaret explained. "He checks every stuck car, every broken-down vehicle. He can't save our daughter, but maybe he can save someone else's family." Tom nodded. "Been doing it for 15 years now. You're the 4th family I've found in trouble." The others all made it home safe too. Sarah realized something incredible. This man had been risking his own life, driving in deadly conditions, looking for strangers to save. Not for money, not for fame, but because he couldn't save his own daughter. "You're a hero," Sarah whispered. "No, ma'am," Tom said firmly. "I'm just a father who knows what it's like to lose someone. If I can stop another family from feeling that pain, then my daughter's death means something." Sarah and the children spent the night at Tom and Margaret's farmhouse. The blizzard raged outside, but inside they were warm, safe, and cared for like family. In the morning, the storm had passed. The sun came out, turning the snow into a glittering white blanket that covered everything. Tom helped Sarah call a tow truck for her car. He also called her mother to let her know they were safe. Then he made a big breakfast: pancakes, eggs, bacon, and hot coffee. As they ate, Emma said something that made everyone stop. "Mr. Tom, you're like the Good Samaritan from Sunday school, the one who helped the stranger on the road." Tom smiled. "That's a nice thing to say, little lady." "I was really scared last night," Emma continued. "But you saved us. Just like in the story." Jacob nodded enthusiastically. "You're a real superhero." Even little Lily, who had been quiet most of the morning, climbed into Tom's lap and hugged him. "Thank you for saving us," she whispered. Tom's eyes filled with tears. He held Lily gently and looked at Margaret. In that moment, Sarah understood this wasn't just about saving strangers. This was about Tom and Margaret's healing too. When the tow truck arrived and Sarah's car was pulled from the ditch, it was time to leave. The car still ran, though it would need work. Sarah stood with Tom and Margaret at their front door. "I don't know how to thank you. You saved our lives." "You don't need to thank us," Margaret said, hugging her tightly. "Just promise me something. Anything. When you see someone else who needs help, maybe not in a blizzard, maybe just in everyday life, you help them. That's all we ask. Pass it forward." Sarah nodded, crying again. "I promise, I absolutely promise." Tom shook her hand. "And you take care of those kids, they're special." As Sarah drove away with her children, she looked in the rearview mirror. Tom and Margaret stood in their doorway, waving, until they disappeared from view. This story spread throughout their small town and eventually reached the local news. Reporters wanted to interview Tom, call him a hero, make him famous. Tom refused all interviews. He didn't want attention. He just wanted to keep checking Route 9 during storms, looking for the next family that might need help. But Sarah wanted people to know his story. Not to make him famous, but to inspire others. She wrote about what happened on social media and it went viral. Hundreds of thousands of people shared her post. The comments poured in. "This restored my faith in humanity. We need more people like Tom in this world. I'm going to be more helpful to strangers because of this story." Sarah kept her promise to Margaret. She started volunteering at a homeless shelter. When she saw stranded motorists, she stopped to help. When elderly neighbors needed groceries during bad weather, she delivered them. Her children learned the lesson too. Emma started a school program where kids helped elderly people with yard work. Jacob began saving his allowance to donate to charity. Little Lily, now 8 years old, still talks about Mr. Tom who saved us. The universal message this story teaches us something profound. In a world that often tells us to fear strangers, to mind our own business, to protect ourselves first, there are still people like Tom and Margaret. People who choose compassion over fear. People who risk their own safety to help others. Tom couldn't save his daughter. That tragedy could have made him bitter, angry at the world, afraid to care. Instead, he turned his pain into purpose. He decided that if he couldn't save his own child, he would save other people's children. That's the deepest kind of love, the kind that helps strangers not for reward, but because it's the right thing to do. Sarah's story also teaches us about trust. She had to make an impossible choice: trust a stranger or risk death. Her motherly instinct was to protect her children from unknown people. But sometimes survival requires faith in humanity, and she was right to trust. Not every stranger is kind, we know that. But Tom was. And because Sarah chose trust over fear, her children lived. What we can learn: we may never face a life-or-death blizzard scenario, but every day we face small choices. Do we help the person whose car broke down? Do we check on the elderly neighbor during bad weather? Do we stop when we see someone struggling? Do we offer kindness even when it's inconvenient? Tom checks Route 9 because he knows that one act of kindness can save a life. One decision to help instead of passing by can change everything. Margaret asked Sarah to pass it forward. That's the real lesson. We may not be able to save everyone, but we can save someone. And that someone might go on to save someone else. Kindness multiplies. Compassion spreads. One good deed creates ripples that touch lives we'll never know about. Sarah Miller and her 3 children are alive today because Tom chose to drive through a deadly blizzard looking for people in trouble. They're alive because he said 4 simple words: "Come with me." How many lives could we change if we all chose compassion? If we all looked for opportunities to help instead of reasons to ignore? If this story touched your heart, hit that like button and subscribe to our channel right now. We bring you true stories about everyday heroes, hope, and humanity. Drop a comment and tell us, have you ever been helped by a stranger? Or have you been the stranger who helped someone else? Share your story. And please, hit that notification bell so you never miss when we share more stories that remind us that good people still exist. Thanks for watching, and remember, in a world that can be cold, be someone's warmth. Be someone's Tom. See you in the next story.